That's right, I started a second channel. If you thought the videos on the main channel have been getting lazy recently, just wait. No, so the real reason is that I want to bring the quality back up on the main Flight Simulator channel, and this is just so that I can keep churning out lower effort content while I'm trying to get the... Basically, I'm trying to have the main channel be more stuff like serial killing for fun and profit, and then stick the stuff like, making the Mike's Hard Lemonade and Gatorade drink somewhere here. Anyways, what are we doing today? We're going through a iceberg chart. Sorry, Wendigoon. Really, the reason for this one is because I saw one on Reddit, just during one of my few occasions actually going and looking through the depths of that subreddit, the iceberg chart one. And I thought it'd be fun to do one of the conspiracy icebergs and just kind of go off the top of the dome. Not look up anything, just see how many of these I can explain. And so we're going to be looking at this, which I'm going to link in the description and, be pulling up throughout. The Disturbing Facts, Theories, and Things iceberg. All right, so let's start at the beginning. Level 1. Hell. Okay, I mean, it's hell. It's hot. I think we're all familiar with that. Size of the universe, really, really, really big, really big. Irreversible and apocalyptic effects of climate change. Yes, it's hot, it's hot. 80% of the ocean is unexplored. This one actually is pretty creepy. There could be all kinds of creepy, crawly slimies down there. Paranormal activity. Ooh, ghosts. Schizophrenia. I'm sure everyone who's a fan of this channel is probably familiar with that. Possibility of nuclear war. Yeah, I mean, not much we can do about that, so whatever. Unbelievable coincidences. There sure are a lot of those, especially when you start looking into things later down this chart. Evil. It's bad. Cancer. You don't want it. Selling your soul. Don't want to do that either. Jeffrey Epstein rabbit hole. That is a whole big long one. I think everyone here is familiar with that already. Apocalypse. This is going to be like some kind of, either, like, there's a couple of different scenarios. It's the I have no mouth and I must scream one, where, like, it torments the people that create it after causing a nuclear war. There's Skynet, where it just sends out killbots. There's, yeah. Mandela effect. This one is interesting. This one also gets touched on later. It's the idea that, if you're not familiar, it takes its name from the idea that most people remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 90s. And then when it turns out he didn't, they were like, wait a second. But it's a term for a shared delusion, which some people think may be evidence of timeline jumping. We'll get to that later. Yeah, selling your soul. It's hot, it's hot. Okay, now this is getting into the better part. Level 2. Number 1, Fermi paradox. So the Fermi paradox is interesting. It's the idea that, like, if the universe is as vast as we think it is, and, there's so many planets, like, surely the, idea that we're the only planet that has any kind of life that can be detected within the, the observable universe, like, that's ridiculous. But then, why aren't there aliens? The answer is there are. Top 1% of Americans have 16 times more than the bottom 50%. Yeah, I mean, it's like, the best way to visualize this is, like, in RuneScape, right? You'll, be working and, just grinding and grinding and grinding to get, like, 5,000 gold, and then you go around and see someone wearing, like, a party hat. And it's like, because wealth kind of just, it gets into feedback loop stuff at the end, like the resto mod glitch in Skyrim, where you can just enchant stuff up to like 1,000,000,000%. And it's like the last few steps, you're like, do. 27 Club. That's when everyone famous dies at the age of 27. Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain, Janis Joplin, John Belushi, I think. I'll put a list up here of people that happens to. Really, I think the answer for this is that 27 years is how hot, like, is usually Jimi Hendrix. 27 years, I think, is probably about the average for how long you can do drugs like it's a competition and live before your body gives out. Deep sea creatures, anglerfish, blobfish, freaky, creepy little guys. I like them. I'm a fan. Really not that disturbing. Or I guess maybe it means like, the Kraken or Cthulhu or whatever, which, if you look at a vampire squid, I can see how people think that's some kind of fucked up undersea god. Okay, spontaneous combustion. So this is an interesting one. So what I mean by this is basically like there's a handful of fairly well publicized examples of someone just apparently spontaneously combusting, just like. So here's what this is. It is something called the Wick effect. Like it's pretty much just figured out at this point. So like here's what's happening, right? Most of these cases were back when everyone smoked all the time. Someone is smoking, they drop a cigarette, onto, some piece of clothing, and they wind up just, boom. And it's like, well, how does that happen? Clothing doesn't burn that fast. Clothing does burn that fast when it's a fabric wick. And a wick is just a little piece of, like even just a tiny spark. And so it's not always cigarettes, it can be like something like this, but if you have a piece of fabric that is near some kind of oil or lipid, that can wind up wicking that into a flame very rapidly. And, what's the lipid that's being used? It was always people who were morbidly obese, like really fat people. And yeah, that's what's the deal with that. Moving on. Cosmic calendar. I actually don't know what this one is. The first one that I've encountered so far. Butterfly effect. That's the whole thing about, chaos theory, where, any minutely small input into it can radically change the output, which is, yeah, that's chaos theory. A butterfly flaps its wings in Africa and, causes a, plane to crash, halfway around the world, that type of shit. The photos taken right before death. This is like photos of people taken right before they died, like right before they slip off of the cliff they're hanging on. They fail doing the Russian parkour thing where they're like, Ivan, look, I'm hanging off with one hand. Yeah, people soon to die. 600,000 people go missing each year. Where do they go? We don't know. They get eaten, usually, or sex trafficked. Also, part of this channel is so that I can kind of more bluntly talk about things I wouldn't want to risk my main channel for. So next up, on level 2, Operation Northwoods. This is an interesting one. So what they do is they stage a hijacking on an airliner, right? They start flying that. They have the plane's position on radar. They have a second plane, filled with whatever it needs to be filled with for the purposes. That doesn't have any kind of radar or tracking, turned on, that, intercepts it, moves over to right on top of the one that is supposedly hijacked, and then turns on a radio beacon at the same time the fake hijacked one turns off a radio beacon. So it's a completely seamless transition. The one with the radio beacon that turns off is, taken elsewhere. And then the one that turns on the radio beacon, that one is flown somewhere remotely and then crashed into it. And the plan, I believe, was to crash it somewhere in Miami to blame the Cubans and start a war with Cuba. This is confirmed. You can read on the CIA's own website what the deal with this is. And it's like, huh. That rings a bell. Something about this feels familiar. Anyways, next up. I'm not joking about that. Level 3. List of unusual deaths Wikipedia page. Very funny. There's a lot of these. I can read some of these Actually, I might do another real low effort reading crap video, reading the list of unusual deaths page. Reversing of social progress. Oh, yeah, that does seem to be happening, unfortunately. Like, basically, you look what's happening right now, and it's just, we're going backwards. Rights are being taken away instead of given. You are 800 times more likely to die in a car crash than a plane crash. Well, yeah, because they make people go to flight school to fly planes, and you have to be able to drive in a circle around the DMV to drive cars. And really, you don't even have to do that. You can just drive a car. It's really hard to just get in a plane and fly it. Planes are very safe. Despite, what the news may look like now, still very safe. We're closer to 2050 than 1990. That is how numbers work. Big Pharma is the present cure for cancer. I mean, so I don't have any kind of proof or evidence for this one way or another, but I'm not going to say that I straight up believe it, but I wouldn't be surprised. Like, the cancer treatment industry is so massive, and it's like, if there's just something that's like, like, they're not going to be like, hey, for this to remain viable and, to not just shoot ourselves in the foot, for it to be worth releasing this, we have to make, more money from, this one dose of a drug than we do from an entire chemo treatment, and that's very expensive. And they're not going to just be like, haha, this, we have a cure, it's $900,000, especially if it's cheap. So I think there is something to that, because really the only country that because there is a lot of stuff pointing to Cuba having a vaccine for lung cancer, or a cure for lung cancer. And it's like, yeah, they're communist. There's a lot of problems there, but, a profit motive in medicine is not one of them. So yeah, I think that's, I think, like, not confirmed at all, but reasonable. Okay, I think we're on level 4 now. Georgia Guidestones. These are interesting. These are weird. Those are the things that are like, basically, so they got blown up recently. There were these big stone monuments with 10 rules, and off the top of the head, it's, I'll just list the rules. The one that people thought was like some New World Order shit was, gotta keep the Earth's population below 500 million. And so I think people were like, I'm gonna blow up the George Soros rocks. Yeah, they had they had it translated into 10 languages. I think it was designed to be by some, eccentric, local car dealership mogul or something like that, to, in the event of, human extinction, to let whatever alien species finds its place know how to work it. CERN equipment cause Mandela effect. This is one of those ones that on its face sort of sounds ridiculous, but I kind of believe it. Basically, the idea that, a lot of these big major Mandela effects are caused by timeline jumping caused by CERN monkeying around with, the God particle, the Higgs boson, and stuff like that. If you look into it, there's better arguments for this than, science is scary. Who knows? Maybe they're doing it for good. All right. BlackRock. Okay, so what did they actually do? I mean, two of the main arguments against them are that, A, they implemented ESG scores, environmental, social, and corporate governance. And what these do is, in effect, they affect, basically the interest rates that you get to get loans. And so because of this, it's a way of putting pressure on businesses. And what can you do to raise ESG scores? You can hire BlackRock, aligned consulting companies. And this is where a lot of the complaints about DEI comes from. And I think the real conspiracy with this is not that, they're trying to, they're trying to make us woke. It's that, like, I think a lot of the specifically BlackRock approved DEI related stuff is very, very, very focused on identitarian stuff at the specific expense of any kind of class consciousness. I think it's much more of a, like, oh yeah, we'll give you lower interest rates on your loans if, you talk about anything except for money. And which I, like, that's a take that, I thought would be pretty middle of the road, but whoo boy, TikTok did not like that one. Then the other thing that I think people are mad about is the idea of them buying up all the single-family housing. That's technically not true, and I say technically because technically BlackRock doesn't own any single-family houses. Blackstone does, a subsidiary of BlackRock specifically for buying single-family houses. So if someone tries to use that in an argument, dunk on them. But also BlackRock is the sole provider of the, retirement fund for everyone in the government. So unless we fix that, no one's going to be really going too hard against them. Okay, Larry Silverstein and two numbers that add up to 20, if you get my drift. Lucky Larry. This one right here is the example of why I kind of assumed that, like, yeah, I should probably be doing this on a second channel. Larry Silverstein was the owner of two very tall buildings in New York City in 2001, and a couple other ones. So there's a reason people call him Lucky Larry, right? So what he did was, in, I believe, July of 2001, he purchased the Twin Towers from the, New York City Port Authority. And at this time, they were a real hard sell because they were completely full of asbestos, and it would cost more to get rid of all the asbestos in them than it would to than they were worth. So, like, they were basically underwater because of the cost of the asbestos removal. So they were like, okay, yeah, sure. He bought them for $13 million cash, and then, like, the rest of it as a weird long-term loan that, surprise, surprise, things kind of got in the way. Then, following this, he, immediately took out specifically terrorism insurance. He was like, what's the biggest possible policy I can get on these two guys? And again, none of this is conjecture or speculation. This is just factual. And in fact, he actually got paid out twice. He got paid out a total of, I believe, $5 billion. Because he got paid a lawsuit of, $2.5 billion. Like, that was the policy, but he managed to claim it twice because there were two attacks. And also, he would eat, breakfast and lunch every morning and afternoon in one specific floor. And the first day that he didn't do that was a very specific day, and none of his kids were there. And all right, next on the list, alternative timelines of history. I'm assuming that this means, like, what if this country had won this war? What if, like, either that or, like, so it's kind of unclear here. Basically, either, like, alt history, like, Man in the High Tower or Man in the High Castle, whatever the fuck it's called, or, like, the thing I was talking about with the CERN Mandela effect time jumping thing. So it might be a repeat. Okay, so here's one which I don't want to say too many buzzwords, but this one has to do with a country that is currently not exactly popular for their conduct. Knowing about a date that the two numbers add up to 17 in advance. And I'll just say that, like, how could, the world's most advanced surveillance spy organization in the world possibly have been able to look through a chain link fence and be like, why do they have, what are they going to do with those paragliders? No way they could have seen that coming. I think that's impossible. Level 5. No shortage of predators for to catch a predator and other sting operations. I mean, it's depressing, but yeah. No, there are no shortage of predators. Like it's it's a number that's a whole lot higher than you think. Let's see. Uh, Solipsism. Solipsism is interesting. That's basically when you go through life like it's Grand Theft Auto. Like what you think is that, like, oh yeah, no, like everyone else that I'm seeing around here, they're just figments of my imagination. Like people who think that, like, they may as well be like a brain in a jar just hallucinating. Like dreams are solipsistic. There's not actual people that you're interacting with. But generally not a good mindset to cultivate. Okay, Stanley Meyer and water-powered cars. This is one I think has kind of gotten a little bit out of hand recently, and I want to sort of address some misconceptions about this. So Stanley Meyer invented the hydrogen fuel cell, where water goes in and uh, turning comes out. And he was not killed for inventing the hydrogen fuel cell. What he was killed because he was trying to sell the hydrogen fuel cell to the Hungarians after he brought the hydrogen fuel cell to the government, and they were like, like, yeah, cool, it's a hydrogen fuel cell. Yeah, yeah, we got those. No, we don't want to buy it. So then he was like, well, I'm going to sell it to Hungary, and then it's like, okay, well, all right. So that's what happened with that. Next, we have INA 11A, insider trading. So this one does seem to be real. Basically what happened is in the days leading up to that tragedy, there were hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of very kind of curious and like sort of counter to the market shorts that were placed on United Airlines and American Airlines. And yeah, and it turns out those paid out really well. And the problem with those is that we don't know who placed them because, and also they didn't really get investigated because the SEC was also blown up. It wasn't in one of the towers. That was in Building 7, which was the one that just sort of joined the party for no reason. All right, this is number 6, I believe. Tier number 6. 20% of Americans are allergic to nickel. I guess that's probably really annoying. I don't know if this is like more specific than that, or if it's just like most people have a lot of people have nickel allergies. God doesn't care about Earth. I am Jewish. Yes, that is true. SEN meaning. So I think that means special educational needs. Traditionally, I don't see why that would be on here. I'm guessing like maybe it means like sexual exploitation network, which is like, yep, those exist. That's a bummer. Actually, also that does kind of relate to the first definition. Okay, so that is, okay, I need to count these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Power of money. I don't know what this is referring to. Other than, I guess, money is power. Cole Romney is a real person. Okay, this one is a rabbit hole. There is allegedly, well, okay, so what there is confirmed a 4chan thread on the /X board, allegedly from someone who claims to have been hired to stay with a member of the Romney family, Cole Romney, and allegedly in Minecraft from this completely unverified source on 4chan, who admittedly did seem to know a whole lot about things. Cole Romney, who does it appears there is a Cole Romney, but who knows? Like, this may just be made up. Please don't sue me, Romney family. Allegedly, according to the X thread, he did coke all the time and would eat like cereal out of like a salad bowl with like a serving spoon, which was one of the things that always stuck out to me. It was really funny, but also, would do drugs with hookers, and then, occasionally they'd overdose, and he'd be like, "Oh man, not again!" And then they'd be like, "Can you call the guy with the rug?" And like, allegedly, in Minecraft. And then finally, last tier. I believe this is what I hate trying to keep track of the number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Tier 8, house centipedes. The creepy crawlies. I don't like them either. There's so many legs. They're actually good to have in your house because they eat other bugs and they're harmless, but ugh, I don't like how they look. Anyways, so here is this is the iceberg chart video. Please subscribe to this channel. If you're watching this, it means you're probably familiar with my other channel. Please subscribe to this one. If I get subscribers to this one, I will post more kind of spur of the moment things, because I just did this in like an hour. I can do more videos like this. If you watch this one and subscribe, thank you.